Hello, everybody. So in today's lesson, we're going to work on dividing decimals in lesson 5.4. We're on page 125 of the 6th grade Go Math textbook. So let's go ahead and look at the activity for this lesson. So use decimal grids to find each quotient. And so it says we have 6 and 39 hundredths, and we're going to divide by 3. So it wants us to shade grids to model 6 and 39 hundredths. And we need to separate the model into 3 equal groups. Well, let's just take the 6 whole number, right? Okay, so 6 divided by 3 would be 2, right? So if we shade 639 first, each of these is worth 100. So 400, 500, 600, and then 39. All right. So we have 639 squares shaded. For every one whole, it would be 100 out of 100. So if we were just looking at the whole number, and we have to break it into 3 equal groups, well, 6 divided by 3 would be 2, right? So we would have 2 full hundreds in every whole, or in every group. Okay, so we have 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. Okay, so we have 2, 2, 2 in every group, right? Now let's take the 30 hundredths, and we're going to think of that just as 30. And 30 divided by 3 would be 10, right? So we now take each of these strips of 10 and break them into 3 groups. Okay, so I have 3 sets of 10. Now if we take the 9 and divide by 3, that would be 3 in each group. Okay. So how many are in each group? Well, we have 2 wholes, we have 10 hundredths, and we have 10 tenths, and we have 3 hundredths. So 2 and 13 hundredths. So 6 and 39 hundredths divided by 3 is 2 and 13 hundredths. So we can say 2 and 13 hundredths, or there's 213 squares in each group. So 6 and 39 hundredths divided by 3 is 2 and 13 hundredths. Okay, so again, shade the grid model to show 6 and 39 hundredths. And this time we're going to separate the model into groups of 2 and 13 hundredths. So shade the same thing that we just did. All right, so we have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 39 hundredths. And now we're going to split them into groups of 2 and 13 hundredths. All right, well, here's 1, there's 2, and then we count 13 hundredths. So 10, 11, 12, 13. All right, so 2 and 13 hundredths. Now we need to do another group of 2 and 13 hundredths. Well, if we took 13 hundredths from this 100, that's 87 plus 100, so 187, 197, 207, and then 6 more. Okay, so now we have 2 groups of 2 and 13 hundredths. And so then the last group, we have 100, we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 74, 84, 94, 104, 113. So 113 plus 100 is 213. So how many groups do we have? We have 1, 2, 3 groups. So 6 and 39 hundredths divided by 2 and 13 hundredths is 3. All right, so let's look at the multiple representations. So when we're using models to divide decimals, when might you want to use grids divided into tenths instead of hundredths? Well, that would be if we have the decimal in the problem only has one decimal point. So like if this was not 2 and 13 hundredths, or rather something like 2 and 1/10, then I'd want to use tenths. Okay. So we would divide our grids into tenths if we only had one decimal point in the decimal. All right, so let's look at page 126. All right, and so now dividing by whole numbers. Okay, well, we've been dividing whole numbers in 4th and 5th grade, right? So when you divide by a whole number and get a decimal quotient, the placement of the decimal point in the quotient is determined by the placement of the decimal in the dividend. So the number on the inside, which is the dividend, that's the placement of the decimal point if we're dividing by a whole number. So Marco paid $39 for 8 tubes of oil paint. So we're going to write out 39. Okay, $39. And if we have to add extra zeros to terminate the decimal or to get it to a point where it would repeat, we would add extra zeros in the dividend. All right, so we're going to divide using long division. Remember, we're going to think of this as just 39 divided by 8, and then we'll worry about placing the decimal at the end. So 8 times 4 is 32. When we go subtract, we're going to get 7. We're going to bring down our 0 tenths, and 70 divided by 8 is going to give us 8. 8 times 8 is 64. We subtract, we get 6. We're going to bring down the 0 hundredths. 8 times 7 is 56. So subtract, we're left with 4. Let's add a 0 because the decimal hasn't terminated and it's not repeating. So we're going to keep adding zeros until we have one of those two situations. So we bring down the 0. 8 times 5 is 40. So now we're at 0. Okay, so now though, since this is a money amount, right? Well, we wouldn't express our money amount as $4.875. We would just go ahead and round to the nearest penny. So $4.88. Here's another example. A school track is 9 and 76 meters wide. It is divided into 8 lanes of equal width. So we're going to place the decimal straight up in the quotient. We're going to treat this as if it's just 976 divided by 8. And then we'll place the decimal at the end. So divide using long division as with whole numbers. So 8 times 1 is 8. Subtract, we get 1. Bring down the 7/10. 17 divided by 8 is 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Subtract, we get 1. Bring down the 6/100ths. And we have 16 divided by 8 again, and we have 2. Now we have a 0 remainder. So our answer is that each lane is 1 22/100 meters wide. A third example. An aerobics class costs $153.86 for 14 sessions. So we have a decimal divided by a whole number. So we're just going to put the decimal straight up into the quotient when we're finished. So divide it out. We can take 114 from 15 with a remainder of 1, bring down to 13. I'm bringing down to 3, the 31s. Can't take any 14s from 13, so that's 0. Bring down the 8/10. 138 divided by 14 is 9. That gives us 126. With a remainder of 12, bring down the 6/100ths. And 126 divided by 14 we know is 9. So that leaves us 0. So the cost of the class is $10.99. All right, so now let's practice this then. Okay, so Inez spent $19 on a package of 8 bandanas. About how much did each bandana cost? All right. So we're going to put 19 in the dividend. We're going to divide by 8. Okay. So let's treat this as just basically 1900 divided by 8. 8 times 2 would be 16. Subtract, we're going to be left with 3. We're going to bring down the 0/10. 8 times 3 is the closest we can get to 30. Subtract, we're left with 6. Bring down the 100ths. 60 divided by 8 is 7. Subtract, we get 4. Well, these numbers are, the quotient is not repeating and the decimal hasn't terminated yet. So let's bring down a 0. 8 times what is 40? 5. Okay, so now we're just going to place the decimal straight up into the quotient. So 2 375/100ths. But it says money amount. So each bandana doesn't cost $2.375. We're going to round this up to 8. So we're going to get about $2.38 per bandana. Let's try number 3. 9.75, so 9 75/100ths divide by 5. So we can go ahead and place the decimal, if you want, right in the quotient right there, because it's just going to go straight up. So 5 times 1, we're going to get 4 ones left over. Bring down the 7/10. 9 times 5 is 45. Get a remainder of 2/100ths. I'm sorry, 2/10. Bring down the 5/100ths. 25 divided by 5 is 5. And we have 0 remainder, so 1 95/100ths. Number 4, 6 44/100ths. Divide by 7. If we bring the decimal point straight up into the quotient, I know I can't take any 7s from 6. So how many 7s can I take from 64? 9. Bring down the 4/100ths, and 7 times 2 is 14. So our answer is 92/100ths. Number 5, 87 6/10. Divide by 3. So bring the decimal point straight up into the quotient. 3 times 2 is the closest we can get to 8 with a remainder of 2. Bring down the 7. 9 times 3 is 27. And bring down the 6/10. Well, 3 times 2 is 6. So we get 29 and 2/10. And number 6, 99 and 82 hundredths divided by 14. Okay, we can bring the decimal straight up. All right, 14. How many 14s can you take from 9? You can't. So let's look at 99. 99 times what is close? 14 times what is closest to 98? Well, I'm thinking 7 would be my closest. Yeah, that gets us 98. So 98 minus 99 minus 88. 98 is 1. Bring down the 8/10. Well, we can take 1/14 from that. The remainder of 4, bring down the 2. I know 3 times 4 is 12. So I think this is going to be 14 times 3. Yep. Okay, so 7 and 13 hundredths. All right, let's move on to number 7. All right, so what happens if we divide by a decimal? Well, when we multiply both the dividend and the divisor of a quotient, like 8 divided by 4, by the same power of 10, the quotient is not going to change. So let's look at this. 8 divided by 4. If we multiply both the dividend and the divisor by 10, well, we'd get 80 over 40. Well, that's still going to be 2. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 80 divided by 40 is 2. What if we multiplied it by 100? So second power of 10, right? So 8 times 100 is 800, and 4 times 100 is 400. Well, 800 divided by 400 is still 2. So if we multiply the dividend and the divisor by the same power of 10, we'll get the same quotient. Okay, so we're going to keep that in mind as we do these problems. So to divide a number by a decimal, we're going to first change the divisor to a whole number. And we do that by multiplying the divisor by a power of 10. So if we have a number like 5 and 2/10, if I multiply 5 and 2/10 by 10, that's going to move the decimal point one place to the right, and we'd get 52. So we can turn the decimals into whole numbers by multiplying by powers of 10. So look at this example. 8 and 2/10 divided by 4 and 1/10. Well, we want to make the 4 and 1/10 into a whole number. So let's multiply it by 10. But I also have to multiply the dividend by that same power. Now we have 82 divided by 41. 2. So 8 and 2/10 divided by 4 and 1/10 is just 2. All right, so let's look at another example. Every smoothie sold contains 5/10 cup of raspberries. How many smoothies can be sold using 3 and 25 cups? So step 1, we want the decimal currently has 1 decimal point, right? 5/10. So we're going to multiply the dividend and the divisor by 10 so that the divisor is a whole number. So 5/10 times 10 is 5. 3 and 25 hundredths multiplied by 10 is 32 and 5/10. So now we're dividing 32 and 5/10 by 5. Well, this is just like dividing by a whole number now, right? So we place the decimal straight up, and we just finished dividing. 5 times 6 is 30. Subtract, we get 2. Bring down the 5/10. 5 times 5 is 25 with no remainder. So in this case, how many smoothies could be sold using half a cup of raspberries? If they use 5/10 cup of raspberries and you have 3 and 25 hundredths cups, you can actually sell 6.5 smoothies. Well, who wants a half a smoothie? So basically you would say 6 smoothies. All right, how about when we're talking about money amounts? So Anthony spent $11.52 for some pens that were on sale for 72 cents each. How many pens did Anthony buy? So the divisor has two decimals this time. It has two decimal places. So we're going to multiply the dividend and the divisor by 100. So 72 hundredths times 100 is 72. 11 and 52 hundredths times 100 is 1152. So now we have 1152 divided by 72. If we see the division through, we notice that our answer will be 16. So he bought 16 pens. So now let's try it. Okay. So number 7. So the number in front of the division sign is the dividend. So we have 4 and 25 hundredths divided by 5 tenths. We want to multiply the 5 tenths by 10 to make it into a whole number. Okay, so basically we're moving it one place to the right by multiplying by 10. So we're going to multiply 4 and 25 hundredths by 10, and we'd get 42 and 5 tenths. So our new problem is 42 and 5 tenths divided by 5. Okay, all we did was moved basically the decimal point one place to the right in the divisor and one place to the right in the dividend. So 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract, we get 2. Bring down the 5 tenths. And we get 8 and 5 tenths. Okay, number 8. 15 and 12 hundredths divided by 84 hundredths. Okay, we have 2 decimal places in the divisor. So we're going to multiply by 100. 84 hundredths times 100 is 84. And 15 and 12 tenths times 100 is 1,512. So our problem is actually 1,512 divided by 84. So how many 84s can I take from 151? Just one. 67 in my remainder. Let's bring down the 2. 8 times what could end in a 2? 3, but 3 times 8 is 24, so that's not going to be big enough. Maybe 8. 8 times 4 is 32. Let's try 8. Yep. Okay, so our answer is 18. Let's move on to page 128. All right, so the guided practice. Number 1, 29 divided by 4. Okay, so we're dividing a whole number by whole number. 7 times 4 is 28. Subtract, we get 1. Now we could technically write 7 and 1/4. And you probably know that 1/4 is the same as 25 hundredths. But let's go ahead and see it through, and let's add 0 after the 9. Okay, this doesn't change the value by adding a 0 after the last, after the decimal point. It doesn't change the value. And so we'd have 2, subtract, we get 2. Let's add another 0. And 4 times 5 is 20 with no remainder. So where's the decimal point? It was right after the 9. So 7 and 25 hundredths. Okay, number 2. Number 2, we have 49 divided by 8. Okay, again, our decimal point is right there if we need to add zeros. Well, 8 times 6 is 48. Subtract, we get 1. We could say 6 and 1/8. What is 1/8 as a decimal? Well, let's see. Let's add a 0. How many 8s can you take from 10? 1. Subtract, we get 2. So the decimal is not repeating and it hasn't terminated, so let's add another 0. 20 divided by 8. Well, that's 2. Subtract, we get 4. Let's add another 0. Okay, 8 times what is 40? 5. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract, we get 0. Okay, so it's terminated. Now I have no remainder. So our answer is 6 and 125 thousandths. All right, number 2. 6 and 8 tenths divide by 2. All right, this is actually a pretty simple division problem. We're dividing a decimal by a whole number. So the decimal placement is in the same location as it is in the dividend. 2 times 3 is 6. Bring down the 8 tenths. 2 times 4 is 8. And we get 0. So 3 and 4 tenths. Number 4. 144 thousandths divided by 96 hundredths. All right, so if I multiply 96 hundredths by 100, it's going to be 96, right? So I'm going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. If I multiply 144 thousandths by 100, I get 14.4, which means I move the decimal point 2 places to the right. Okay, well, 96 cannot be taken from 14. I could probably only get 196 from 144. So we get a remainder of 48. Let's add a 0. 5 times 6 is 30, and 5 times 9 is 45, so this is probably 5. Yep. Okay, so that terminates. It's 15 hundredths. Okay, number 5. 38 and 5 tenths divided by 5 tenths. Okay, so what is 5 tenths times 10? It's just going to be 5, right? 38.5 times 10 will be 385. So you'll start to find that I just have to move the decimal point the same number of places in both the dividend and the divisor. And the reason I can do that is because I'm multiplying by the same power of 10. Right? So 7 times 5 is 35 with a remainder of 3. Bring down the 5 and we have the same problem. So 7.7 or 7 and 7 tenths. Oh, okay. So this is, I want to go back and look at this. Remember I said I moved the decimal point here, right? So it's not here. It's actually after the 7. So it's 77, not 7 and 7 tenths. Okay, number 6. 6 and 45 hundredths divide by 3. Okay, well, we're dividing a decimal by a whole number. So just place the decimal. 3 times 2 is 6. Subtract. Bring down the 4 tenths. 3 times 1 is as close as we can get. And then bring down the 5 hundredths. 3 times 5 is 15. And we get 0. So 2 and 15 hundredths. Number 7. 5 and 6,372 ten thousandths divided by 17 hundredths. Okay, so if we multiply 17 hundredths by 100, we turned it into a whole number. So we moved it 2 places to the right. And we're going to do the same thing to the dividend. So 5 and 372 ten thousandths to multiply by 100 would be 563 and 72 hundredths. So we're 2 places to the right. I'm going to go ahead and put the decimal straight up after moving it. So now I'm kind of I'm dividing a decimal by a whole number. Okay. 17 and 56, 3. Remainder of 5, bring down the 3, so it'll be a 3 again. Bring down the 7. I can get 117 from 27. Bring down the 2. Maybe 6, because 6 times 7 is 42. I'm looking for a number that would end in a 2. So 17 times 6. So 33 and 16 hundredths. Number 8, we have 8 and 19 hundredths. We need to divide that by 4 and 2 tenths. Well, if I multiply 4 and 2 tenths by tenths, because there's one decimal point, that would give me 42. If I multiply 8 and 19 hundredths by 10, I'd get 81 and 9 tenths. Again, you notice we moved the decimal point 1 place to the right in the dividend, in the divisor. And we also moved it 1 place to the right in the dividend. I placed the decimal point because now I'm dividing by a whole number. So I can only get 142 from 81. 2 times nothing is going to give me a 9. So let's see, 42 times 9? 378, yes. Okay, so 378. And that leaves me 21. Bring down a 0. 5 times 2 is 10. That could work. Okay, so 1 and 95 hundredths. Okay, number 9, 66 and 5 tenths. Divided by 3 and 5 tenths. Okay, so if we multiply 3 and 5 tenths by 10, we'd move the decimal point 1 place to the right. If we multiply 66 and 5 tenths by 10, we'd move it 1 place to the right. So we have 665 divided by 35. I can take 135 from 66. Bring down the 5. Well, 9 times 5 is 45. I'm going to try 9. Yep. Okay, so it's 0, and I have no other numbers to bring down, so 19. All right, and number 10, we have 234 thousandths divided by 78 hundredths. Okay, so since there's 2 decimal places in the divisor, I want to make this into a whole number. So 78 hundredths times 100 would be 78. 234 thousandths times 100 would be 23 and 4 tenths. Okay, well, I can't get any 78s from 23, so let's try 234. Maybe 3. So just 3 tenths. All right, so let's go ahead and stop there for part 1. And in the next video, I will continue with numbers 11 through the rest of the independent practice. So until then, I'll see you soon.